Welcome back to the Mulberry Book Drop. It is season 2 still, episode 5. So welcome to September.
September.
Yeah, can you believe it?
No, not at all.
What do you got going on that's good?
Guys, I'm moving.
Again.
But closer to work. Oh my gosh, I know, right? I'm moving, but I'm moving closer to work.
That's
so,
good.
Yeah, that's really it for me.
Yeah, that's good news though. I'm happy.
Me too. How about you?
Band. Everything marching band. So it's football season. My kids play instruments. But the marching show for our high school is the 60s. And they got new uniforms this year. A bunch of new students. So that was really fun. And I don't know. We've been having a good time with it. I had to host a parent meeting. So like our first parent meeting was a little weird because we were out on the field. So I had the microphone.
Oh.
And so it was like through the speakers. So I felt like the football announcer. I was like, this is really strange.
That is weird. Like, I'm comfortable with public speaking. I don't know that I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, it was just band parents, so it wasn't that crowded, but it's still, I was a little nervous.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. All right. So Bethany was able to catch up with our wonderful city manager, Mr. Rick Johnson. So take it away.
All right. We're back with our fearless leader, Rick Johnson. What do you got going on in the city now?
Well, we have coming up in the very beginning of October, we have the Hispanic Festival is October 1st, and that will be at Spence Field, and the Harvest Festival, which will be on the 29th, which is, we try to do that right around when we have Halloween, sort of an alternative to kids. They can dress up. We have people giving out candy and all that kind of stuff. So those are the two big things coming up in the next month or so.
Those are fun too. They can get updates on the city's Facebook page about those, right?
Absolutely. Facebook page, Instagram, city's webpage, everything.
Perfect. I love our community events. They're so fun. So this month we are actually doing a podcast about podcasts. So we're curious. Do you have any favorite podcasts you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I'm actually a huge fan of podcasts. I probably have a couple hundred that I dip in and out of, including, of course, the Mulberry Book Drop. That's one of my absolute favorites. But I have one, probably my favorite is American History Storytellers, which is amazing. Just different, they deep dive into different periods in history with, put you kind of do first person, second person, they go throughout the whole thing. And another one is History Unplugged, where they take, almost like All Things Considered, where they take a period of time and they just dig into that as well and just uncover different things that folks aren't necessarily familiar with.
Oh, that sounds cool. I might have to check that one out. I'm always looking for new ones.
Oh, there you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Well, we will be back with you again next month, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rick. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us. And if it's not obvious, like the things, he's so involved in the city. So this is really fun. I'm glad he gets to be a part of this with us. Okay, so why are we here? We're here today because we want to talk about podcasts, because you guys have been asking what we listen to as well, and maybe like why we even decided to do this in the first place. So I just want to stress for a minute before we really get into this, that this is a judgment-free zone.
Yes.
So just, keep an open mind. Just because we listen to it doesn't mean you have to. But, you guys are asking, so we're going to answer your questions. So the way I see podcasts, it's kind of escape and comfort, and, sometimes you're just curious about something and, you want to learn a little more, and sometimes you like it and you keep going, sometimes you don't and you move on to the next one. So, Sarah, I'm curious, how did you get into podcasts initially?
So, I was trying to remember, and I think, you had a huge part to do with it, to be honest. Yeah. I've always wanted to get into podcasts, but I never, knew where to start. And so you, helped me kind of push into them. And you helped me find a couple, and then A Great Addiction started. So, yeah, that's how I got into them. How about you?
Well, I think I was trying to remember. I probably should have gone back and listened to it. We may have mentioned this on the very first episode, but it was my husband.
Oh.
Yeah, he was always teasing me because he loved podcasts, and I don't know how he got into it. Maybe I should have asked him, but he just kept like, give him a chance, you might like it. And I always thought, like, what's the point? You know, it's not, there's no finish, there's no ending, so it didn't make sense to me at the time. And then I finally decided to give one a chance, and next thing I know, I was hooked. So
Yeah.
it was pretty bad. But is there any particular podcast that you started with?
So there's like 2 that I could think of, and the first one, and this makes me really sad because I went on there to look at it because I haven't listened to it in so long, and it's called Unsolved Murders, True Crime Stories. They don't make them anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, like they started it in like 2016, and then all of a sudden in 2019, like they just stopped, and there was like over 160 episodes, and when I went on there was only like 3 listed.
Wow.
But what I liked about it is it's a podcast drama with a modern twist on old-time radio that delves into the mystery of true cold cases and unsolved murders. And I loved it because it had like sound effects in it. And I thought it was a great podcast for people just starting off with podcast. Just because like it's taking you out of listening to the TV without looking at the TV.
Yes.
Going into a full-on podcast. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is called Cold. And there's actually a few seasons because I went back and looked at it. Okay. I only listened to season 1. And it's a narrative podcast series focused on missing person cases. I'm seeing a trend. Each season is focused on one person, but I only listened to the first season, and that was about Susan Powell.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go into like who Susan Powell was or theories or anything like that. But those were the first 2 that I listened to.
Okay, cool. I started with one. Have you ever heard of Criminal?
No.
Okay, so the host, her name is Phoebe Judge, and I will stand by this. She has the best podcasting voice in the world. Yes, I absolutely adore her. So, but it's interesting because you see the title and you just immediately are like, true crime. But for me, hers was true crime is not just the crime. Like sometimes maybe it is, a person who did something or somebody who was convicted. Sometimes it's just people who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes maybe she's talking to people who work in law enforcement. And a couple of the most recent episodes that were my favorites, one of them was a New York City cop, and he was one of the ones that was on the horses. And him and his horse both retired. And so after like 30 years together, and then they were separated. And so it was him. They were kind of talking about him dealing with this like separation from his long-term partner, and she was asking him like, have you gone to visit him yet? And it was like, no, I'm not quite ready. And I was like, you don't realize the effect sometimes that these relationships can have. And the other one, it was really interesting. It's called Devil's Hole. Have you ever heard of it? I guess it's in Nevada. I had never really heard of it before. But there's these fish. They're called pup fish. Oh. And this is the only place in the world they exist.
What?
And so there's like a whole team of people, and this is their job to like count the fish and pay, So they're protected. And these people had like gotten in there and went swimming, and they accidentally like stepped on Oh yeah. So like there's cameras and there was this whole thing. And of course, as soon as the episode was over, I'm not a fisherman, fisherwoman. I don't fish. I immediately had to go online and Google pup fish and see what they look like. And they were adorable.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
So it's interesting. So, sometimes when people say they listen to true crime, realize that sometimes it's more than just what you might immediately assume. So, and then the other one it's called The Moth, and it's real people telling stories.
Ooh.
So some of them are like live shows. Some of them are pre-recorded like this where they piece them together. But they will have like a piece of writing, and they have a couple minutes to share their story. And, I would laugh, I would cry. I stopped mid-run once from this one story that just made me like, what? Like I couldn't, I had to stop moving for a minute. Yeah, it's really good. And like there was one lady who was a hairdresser, and next thing I know, she's telling her story, and it turned out that she knew David Bowie. She used to work on him and his wife's hair, and she thought that he was like a one-hit wonder when he did Space Oddity. Like it's so interesting. And then I call it my gateway podcast, but have you ever heard of Serial?
Yes, I'm pretty sure you've talked to me about Serial.
Okay, a lot of you who listen to podcasts maybe have heard of this one, but it was about the death of a girl named Hae Min Lee, and her ex-boyfriend was arrested, so his name's Adnan. And this one, it really goes into the justice system and how it works. And there's interviews between the creator of the podcast and Adnan, and also all of the other people who are involved. And it's really interesting to see the things that we remember or that we don't remember, or when things change. And it really, like, this one got me. It got me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I need to.
Yeah.
I'll circle it later.
Down.
Yeah.
And this one, I'd be curious if you ever would listen to this, but so CBC, it's the Canadian broadcast. They have some really great podcasts, and there's this one called Someone Knows Something, and they always look into cold cases each season. So, like, the first one was a 5-year-old who went missing on a fishing trip. And the whole premise of it is, if we bring attention to it, somebody out there must know something that can help give us new evidence for the case. And, he'll come back and do, like, update episodes and stuff like that, too, which I really appreciate. So, yeah.
I'm gonna write that one down, too.
Okay. And the cool thing with some of those, too, is it's like, maybe one season might interest you, but another one doesn't. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, Serial season 1 to me was by far the best season. I've listened to a couple more, but, like, season 1 is the one. If you're going to listen, that's the one. Mm-hmm. So same thing with Someone Knows Something. Maybe you like season 1 and season 3, but not 2 and 4. That's fine.
Yeah.
So what kind of stuff have you expanded out to?
So clearly the first 2 that I've listened to are, like, true crime. Mm-hmm. I promise I listen to other things. But my favorite TV show ever, you know what it is.
I do.
It's One Tree Hill. And the 3 main characters they started a podcast about it. And so I've been listening to that. That's like every week I listen to it. Now, granted, I'm like 5 months behind. But it's hosted by Hillary Burton Morgan, Sophia Bush, and Bethany Joe Lenz. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But they go through and they watch the episode together and then dissect the episode. And I love it. And it's so interesting to hear the behind the scenes and just everything that they went through in the show. And I feel like this is also, like, bringing healing for them. So just because there's a lot of things that happen. Mm-hmm. But that's definitely one of my top favorite podcasts right now.
That's something to look into as well, like, if you have a favorite TV show, because there's a lot of stuff that people are coming around and doing that now.
Yeah, and the episode I just listened to, they just mentioned it, and it was one of those, I thought, like, when they were done with season 1 watching it, that they were going to take a break. Mm-hmm. No, they immediately picked it up the next week, which made me really excited. And then the other 2, my church also has a podcast, and so that one's just, like, the message from the previous Sunday.
Oh my gosh, can you hear that? That's my dog is scratching. That was his collar. I'm so sorry.
No, it's good.
Podcast 101.
Right. So, but every week the message that was preached, they upload it, and then there's also another church that I also listen to. If you want to know, you can totally ask me in person, like, what it is, but I'm just gonna
Yeah. That's cool.
So that's kind of where I've expanded to.
Okay. Yeah, I've moved out a little bit. So, like, I've done everything from, some of you know that, like, I have weird eating habits, whatever, but I'm a vegan. And so sometimes
It's not weird.
I have found a few podcasts that do go into, like, food benefits and things like that to make sure that I am eating healthy and all that kind of stuff and getting everything that I need. I also have done a lot of, like, news and political podcasts lately. I had no idea that I cared at all about politics. I don't know if it's, like, a getting older thing or maybe just trying to understand stuff finally. But I find some of that stuff to be fascinating, and there's one that I found recently called Bad with Money, and the girl's name is Gaby Dunn. She was a guest on another podcast that I listened to, and so I thought I'd go give her a chance. And it's really interesting because it's her trying to figure out, like, how to handle her finances, and, like, she has a job now. Like, what do you do when you suddenly do have money when you were raised with parents who were terrible with money and didn't teach you anything? And I find it interesting because it also kind of gives me ideas, like, how to talk to my kids about stuff like that too. So I kind of appreciate that one. And I even found like a weird one. Do you remember I listened to that one about Siegfried and Roy?
Yes.
The one.
But I don't remember much about it.
Yeah, like, so sometimes you can find ones that are like short ones too, where maybe it's only going to be 6 or 8 episodes and then it's over. Like sometimes that's fun. But the other thing is I've been doing a couple of book podcasts. I try not to do too many because now that we're doing one, like I don't ever want to piggyback on someone else's idea.
Yeah.
So that makes me a little nervous. But one of them that cracks me up is there's these 2 guys and it's like Marlon and Jake read dead people. So they only read and talk about dead authors. So that way, if they didn't like it, they don't have to worry about offending an author or upsetting somebody because, you know, Dickens books are going to sell no matter how they feel about them.
Right.
And so they can say their piece if they choose to. But
one of
the guys the one day, so I have tried a lot of Hemingway. It just, I struggle. And I will always remember reading Old Man and the Sea when I was in high school and how much I just couldn't. I just didn't like it. And the one guy was talking about it and all of a sudden out of nowhere he was like, I mean, it's a small book, but it felt so big. And I'm like, man, just get out of the boat. I felt so validated. So, and the other one too that you might find this one interesting, especially since we work in a library. So there's like over 500 episodes. And so I don't know that I will listen to all of them, but the podcast is called Overdue, and it's these 2 friends, and the idea is finally reading a book that you are overdue to have read. So it kind of has, like overdue books in a library, overdue on reading.
I gotta write that one down too.
Yeah, so what they do is they take turns. So like I would read a book, and then we would sit down and I would tell you about it. And so some of the books are, you know, older books that have been around forever. So maybe like The Crucible or Dune or something like that. But then some of the other ones are more recent. Like there's an episode I haven't gotten to yet, but it's about World War Z.
Oh.
So
I tried reading that.
Yeah, so they even do ones like that. And so I'm like, this might be a good way to maybe learn a little more about books that sometimes we don't have time to read. Because there's just so many books out there. And I as much as I want to, I can't read them all. So that one has a fun premise. And then if you are going to listen to another book podcast other than ours, I cannot suggest enough, What Should I Read Next? You know me, I love Anne Bogle.
Yep.
She has put her heart and soul into this, and the premise for this one is so fun because it's tell me 3 books you love, 1 book you hate, and I'm going to try and tell you what to read next. And my favorite part of it, though, is the hate one because people are always so nervous because they're like, I know everyone's going to be mad at me when I say this, and
us.
I know, but you know, it's really interesting that sometimes we might read something at the wrong time, and so it doesn't mean that it's a bad book. It just wasn't the book for you personally, or it wasn't the book for that moment in your life, and that's okay. But I've gotten a lot of suggestions from her podcast, and she's pretty spot on.
Cool.
Yeah, so I enjoy her. So where do you find your podcasts?
So a lot of times I'll just be like, I'm in the mood for this, and I'll just like look it up on Apple Podcasts.
Okay.
And it'll come up with suggestions, and sometimes I'll start listening to one and be like, ew, no.
You just tap that true crime button and just start scrolling.
Clearly, apparently. Or like my friends will recommend it. Or like I'll get recommendations. Y'all, Bethany is my go-to, especially for podcast recommendations. And like there are like 4 on here that like we haven't talked about that now I want to go and listen to. But also if I'm listening to a podcast and they recommend another podcast, sometimes I'll go that way.
Yeah, or like that guest star.
Yeah.
Because I had never heard of her before.
Yeah.
And I was just like, who is this girl? So, yeah, that's cool. So, yeah, I get a lot suggested from, like, other podcasts, and sometimes I do the app and scroll thing, too.
Yeah.
And, like, I've definitely tried some that just haven't worked for me, but then other times I'll find them, and I'm just like, this is such a delightful treat, and I don't know how I missed it. Like, there was one that I listened to, not all of them, I kind of pick and choose, but it's called You're Wrong About, and they, like, pick a subject, and they deep dive into it, and then they kind of myth bust it. Yeah. And so it's not always what you think it is. So, like, there was an episode where they went into the whole... Do you remember the Dare program?
Yeah.
Or did you have something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was fascinating.
Yeah.
There was a lot about it that I didn't realize, and, like, the financial aspect to it was really surprising to me because that was a huge deal. I mean, when I was in, like, middle school and stuff like that. So that one kind of surprised me. And then do you remember the McDonald's coffee case? Did you ever hear about that? The lady who like spilled the hot coffee on herself and then she like sued McDonald's?
No.
Some of you may have heard of that. I remember it. I obviously remembered it incorrectly because they did an episode on it and there was a lot of stuff that I never knew. And I was fascinated, and I actually feel kind of bad now for thinking that like this person was trying to like pull one over, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a little surprising. So, yeah. Do you ever have people that'll like give you the whole, why do you listen to podcasts? Why wouldn't you just listen to an audiobook?
Honestly, no. I think it's interesting how many people like audiobooks but don't like they love podcasts but don't like audiobooks.
Yeah.
But I think it's just one of those, because I definitely, when I read books, I get something out of it. But with podcasts, I just feel like there's something more. And then also sometimes I am very much an extrovert, but especially in the past year, I've been home a lot more. Well, I guess over the past couple of years, I've been home a lot more, and sometimes I just crave like almost like conversations with people. And I feel like when I listen to a podcast, it helps with that. So that's just, and don't get me wrong, I love audiobooks, but for that reason, I think that's why.
Yeah. I find too, sometimes I'm not in the headspace for like a book that's going to be 9 to 12 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm learning now that sometimes I like my ones that are like little 30-minute episodes and I can just listen to it while I'm like dusting my house or prepping dinner or something like that. So, do you think you prefer like the long running seasons, kind of like your Drama Queens one, where it like always continues, or do you like the short seasons?
I like both.
Okay.
I'm a both person, and I wanted to bring this podcast up because you got me hooked on it.
Okay.
Sweet Bobby.
Oh, that was so good.
It was so good. I think it was like 11 episodes, 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And like, I doubt there'll be any more. It's a live investigation. Oh, and I said 11 or 12 in 6 parts.
I was going to say, I thought it was pretty short because I blew through it in like a day.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah. But in search of one of the world's most sophisticated catfishers. And y'all, it's bonkers.
It was.
That's the best word to describe it. And I know that we talked to a couple of our other people that like are listeners, and they had also recommended it. And y'all, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And that was one that I learned about from another podcast.
Yeah, and that one was short, but also I love Drama Queens, and like I love Crime Junkies. That's one of the main ones.
I have that one written down too.
Yeah, so that one, I like that one. I can just pick it up anywhere, listen to any episode, and they're really good on their website about keeping up to, because of course I have to go and research everything.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
so
I
both.
find I do like the short ones because I've done a lot of those where you just kind of get through it in a couple of days and then you take it off your app or whatever. But I do find that I like the long running ones because I find comfort in knowing what to expect. Almost like I know where the commercials are going to be.
Yeah.
I know what their intro sounds like. I know, and I find that comforting. So like Crime Junkies, definitely one of them. And then they had a spinoff. Have you ever listened to Counterclock?
No.
That one's pretty good too, and same thing, like she goes into almost like a cold case. Well, not almost, I mean they really are cold cases, and she does her research, she interviews people, and then a lot of times they'll do question and answers, and so they'll take the girl from Crime Junkies, Ashley Flowers, and she'll interview the host from Counterclock and ask her questions for updates and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and then like you said, it's sort of like as you get to know those long-running ones, it feels like hanging out with your friends.
Yeah.
And so, like, I feel comfortable with you and listening to the story and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's fun. What have podcasts taught you about yourself or maybe helped you with?
Oh.
I know this is a deep question.
It's a deep question.
Do you want to think on it?
Yeah, let me think on that.
Okay,
because
answer. I was asking myself this, and I realized that I love documentaries and nonfiction. I'm realizing as I get older, like, because I was looking at my Goodreads the other day, and I can't believe how many, like, memoirs and history books and stuff I've been reading lately. And I'm wondering if it's because of podcasts, because I'm starting to get more comfortable with, like, that genre almost. So, and I'm finding too that like even my Netflix queue, it's like all documentaries. And so,
mine is not.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love stuff like that. I just love, you're never too old to learn, you know, and I don't have the time sometimes to do the research. And so it's neat to find this other medium, especially if you have somebody that you feel like you trust that they're doing the research and that they're really giving you the correct information.
Yeah.
I love that.
For sure. I thought of an answer.
Okay, what'd you come up with?
Okay, so I think one of the things that podcasts have helped me with, and like kind of taught me more about myself is that I just love helping people. So like when I listen to these true crime things, I'm like, okay guys, we need to come at it from a different angle. And I'm like, I'm not in this. Like I'm not in this podcast. But I think it like psychologically, like it's when like the Sweet Bobby one, like I'm like, okay, but psychologically, like what happened to this person that made them want to do this, and what can we do to help that person? And so I think that's where I think podcasts have helped me realize that that's how I want to help people in the future. Is like, okay, no, there's a root of this. We need to get to the root of this.
Right.
And even though like I do listen to things all across the board, I listen to true crime. I do listen to like my church and like messages and like sermons and stuff like that. But it's like coming together and like the whole thing is like, no, let's help people.
Yeah.
And like mentally, let's help people, and how can we help them? So I think that's
good.
Yeah.
Well, and there's definitely every once in a while I'll come across one where like the premise sounds like it should be right up my alley, but I don't feel anything with the host.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're just separated from it. But then you find other people where it's like their compassion and their empathy is just oozing into my ears, and I'm like, okay, this is the one I'm here for.
Yeah.
This is good. Yeah. I love that. And I've also learned too, like, you don't have to agree with everything that somebody says.
Yeah.
Just to kind of take it in, to learn, to question. There's one that I started recently that's like a Supreme Court. It's, what is it? Strict Scrutiny, I think it's called. And they like break down a bunch of like things going on in the Supreme Court. And I don't know that much about the court and the language, and that, you know, I never took a law class or anything like that. And I'm finding that fascinating. Like that's kind of my new interest. So I'm starting to look to see like other stuff I can find. 'Cause you know, anytime you do something that might be like news or whatever, I like to try and get all sides. And so I like to try and listen to like different people to see other versions too, you know, so that's how we learn. But I don't know. I think that's always interesting. But is there anything that you have learned since we started our podcast?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that it's okay to be me. I mean, you know, this is a podcast through our work, so we do, you know, we do have to be cautious. But I feel like it's okay if you don't see, like, if we don't see eye to eye on something, if we don't view something the same way, and that's okay. And I have a fear of people not liking me. So being okay with being me on the podcast and letting my person, because the first couple episodes, you know, we were both just like,
it was scary.
Can we be ourselves? Like, will people like us? And like, of course, like we do talk to people, but like when you're in a podcast, like it's different. And because I'm just like, the entire time that we record, I'm imagining somebody in their car listening to us as they drive to work or whatever. But knowing that it's okay to be us and let our personalities show, it's good. And like the fear, not everybody's going to like you in life, and that's okay. So that's a fear that I'm having to get over. But you know.
You're growing.
Right?
I think I've learned to be more forgiving. Because I'm learning how hard it is to do all the little things. And so even for us to find time to record sometimes is tough, let alone to actually try and like edit or something. And so I had to learn to be okay with like, this is something that I'm still really proud of and stuff like that. And you know what? Sometimes the audio is not perfect. Sometimes I say too much. You know what? But like you said, that's who I am. Yeah. And even if we were standing across from each other at the circulation desk, that's still how I talk. And I can't really change that necessarily. And we don't have a sound engineer, and we don't have... So I try, like when I start a new podcast, because I'm the type of person where I always have to start from the beginning.
Me too.
Because I want to get to know you and decide if we're compatible.
Yeah.
And if we're not, I'll move on. I'm not going to give you a bad review. I'm not going to be angry. Like, I can move on. It's okay. And one of my favorite examples was, there was a podcast. It's called Morbid. It's true crime, obviously. But
we have an addiction. It's okay.
And for me, I was trying to find my space. Like I had a curiosity, like the psychological aspect and stuff, and so I was trying some different ones to see which one would fit what I was looking for, right? So I gave this one a very long, fair shot, and I enjoyed it, but then it was sort of crossing over too much with some of the same cases in my other ones, and it was, But the first couple episodes, I kept hearing this weird noise, and I was like, what is that? How do they not hear this? Why are they doing that? And I don't remember how many episodes it was, but maybe it was like 10 or 12 episodes in, and I'm like, I don't know if I can take this anymore. Come to find out, they did not realize the one girl was sitting in a rocking chair where they were recording, and they were like, they didn't have microphones yet, and so they were like holding them, and and every time she would rock, and you would hear this noise. And if you guys are listening in headphones, like it's so much louder than if maybe you just have it playing in your computer in the background, right?
Yeah.
And so like I got you in my ear holes, and it's so loud, and they were like, we are so sorry.
Oh, no.
So, like, anytime we've had audio issues, guys, we are so sorry.
Yes,
It really is a learning process. You have to be forgiving. Like, we all have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
And it's been great.
That is actually a good podcast, though, if you like true crime.
Yeah.
So, just to say. That was really funny. But did you have any other ones that you want to point out real quick, or do you think we covered most of our favorites?
I covered most of my favorites. I didn't say all the ones that I listened to. So I don't want people think I'm weird. I'm just kidding.
Well,
I
you
don't
can
really
always
care.
come in and talk to us, too. Because
Right.
when I say I listen to literally a little bit of this, a little bit of that, like, I listen to everything from my girl Joanne, the Korean vegan who now has a cookbook out. Shout out to, it's so delicious. I listen to everything from her to my daily news one and all that kind of stuff. So I do everything.
Yeah, you are definitely way more, you listen to a lot more podcasts than I do.
Yeah.
But no, I think the last one I want to mention is called She Reads Truth, and it is like biblically based, but the episodes that I listened to and really enjoyed is they were interviewing Francine Rivers, who wrote Redeeming Love and has a ton of books out. But with the movie coming out, they interviewed her, and it was just really interesting because she talked about how when she first wrote the book, she actually if you know anything about Redeeming Love, like one of the main characters is a prostitute. So what a prostitute, you have like different language and stuff like that. Well, when she went to have it published, they made her change a lot of stuff, like language and stuff like that. So when the movie came out, and there is language in the movie, and there were a couple scenes in the movie, and people freaked.
Okay.
And I was like, but you have to keep in mind, she's trying to get that point across.
Right.
And you have to understand that. And just because it's quote unquote like Christian story, it is based on a book in the Bible. But know that, like, you think they were, oh, silly goose. No.
Right.
That's not how they were talking.
Right.
So that's not. And so I appreciated that, and hearing her perspective is super interesting. But, yeah, so that's a really good one.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, what are you reading now?
Ooh, so I haven't started it yet.
Because we haven't talked about books yet.
It just came in for me. It's called Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I have no idea what it's about. I'm going in blind. A couple of our patrons have recommended it, and so I'm like, it comes in. I love the cover; it's so pretty.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, did you like it? Did you like it? And they're like, yeah, I loved it. And so I'm like, okay, that's all I need to know.
That's in my pile.
Is it?
It is. I haven't read it yet either, but I did read one of her other books, and I enjoyed it. It was cute.
Good.
So,
what are you reading?
Well, okay, so I don't know if you guys remember from our romance episode that Sarah and I were kind of struggling to find our space, and I think I may have found it.
Ooh.
I know, so I'm a little excited. So a friend of mine, I have a friends book club. We're like up north, we Zoom. So she picked a book, and it turned out it was the second one in the series, and I enjoyed the book. So I went back and read the first one and the third one. So I'm all caught up now.
Okay.
So the author's name is Gaby Jimenez, and the series is called The Friend Zone. And so the first book is The Friend Zone, and you follow these two characters, and it is a romance, but as I say it, it is not a bodice ripper. There's no obvious, like, cowboys. They're not on a ranch, because that's just, I've learned that is not my thing.
Not super spicy.
No, but there's a dog, and I love dogs. So there's like this goofy little dog. His name's Stuntman Mike. And there's these two characters who they're obviously attracted to each other, but she like puts him in the friend zone. And so it's all about like them getting to know each other. And that was what I enjoyed, was them learning how to be around each other, how to talk to each other, how to hang out with each other, and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the attraction ensues, whatever. And then the second book was the Happy Ever After playlist. And this one follows two other people who are actually friends with the first couple. And so they sort of make like an appearance in each other's books, even though the book's not necessarily about them, which I loved. And then the third one is Life's Too Short. And this one follows the male character. He's actually the cousin of one of the characters from the prior book. So that's how the series continues. So it's like there is a connection between the people without it being about the previous people. So I think maybe I have found my space in the romance genre.
Aww.
So I like it to be a little more realistic.
Yeah.
I like some of the sassy jokes. Maybe there's a tiny bit of saucy time, but like nothing overboard.
Yeah.
I just don't need that. So I think I found my comfy space.
Yay. Well, maybe that will become my comfy space too, because I feel like book lovers might be in that same kind of area.
Yeah,
So-
and I just suggested it to somebody else who works in the city, so I'll be curious to find, because I think she does like romance, so I'm curious what she thinks of it.
I may have to give those a read.
Yeah, so it might be too light for some people, but it might be just what we need for others of us.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So, well, this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed our little podcast about podcasts. So weird. But if you guys have any that you want to suggest to us, if you have questions about any of the ones that we talked about, you can always email us. It's themulberrylibrary@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. So, and until next month, happy reading, Mulberry.
Bye.
Thank you.